questions, comments, kindly identify yourself, make the comments brief. If it is a question, let me know who you would like to answer.
My question to Mr. Tanmay Chakravarti. See, our companies, IT companies and pharma companies especially are great success, but they are more a generic or service provider to the world. When we are going to see the innovation like Microsoft or Apple or Pfizer, are Indian companies doing efforts in this direction? That's.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very relevant question. And when do we get our turn to also be like the ones that we draw examples from? I think the answer to that question lies in when do we give ourselves the opportunity. You know, if we stop adopting in the IT context, if we stop adopting international platforms and we encourage the use of domestic indigenously developed platforms, that would be the starting point for us. I always, I interact a lot with the defense forces, and I say that would TCS get an opportunity to execute a program for the US Department of Defense? So reciprocally, why is it that we are not encouraging programs to be executed by Indian companies for Indians' defense requirements? And if we are able to, the biggest issue is the mindset. You know, we are talking about the mind tonight, the harnessing of the getting into the newer pastures is limited by the mindset of the people. So when we ourselves give a chance to the industry, such as pharmaceuticals, such as IT, to create, that's the time when we really will arrive. Because if you look at the skill sets and the nationalities of people who are doing it for those other companies, large populations of those people are actually Indians. So if the Indians can do it for Microsoft, why can't they do it for our own countries, companies, and indigenously to be consumed by ourselves first and then leverage to the rest of the world? So I think the answer to your question is we can change that paradigm only it is in our hands, that we give ourselves the opportunity.
Hi, my name's Yogesh. My question goes out to Mr. Bose. I thought that was a really enlightening talk that you gave us. Some of the techniques that you mentioned in your talk, I think all the people in the audience can identify with meditation, positive affirmation, creative thinking, visualization. Those are all fine, but you brought up something which is really interesting. You said telepathy, and you said that's something that is also used. Now, I'd be really interested to know if somebody's experienced it. Have you? And how does somebody take it forward? Yeah.
I have. Okay, complete. You're finished?
Yeah, so the question is if you could just share something more, if you've experienced it yourself or somebody in the audience, because telepathy is something which I've heard there's some psychic people who can. It's not something which is run-of-the-mill. It's not like meditation or any of the other creative techniques that you shared. So if you could just shed some more light on.
It'll come to you. It'll come to you.
I'm happy you asked this question because I have personally experienced, what is called the power of telepathy on several occasions. You think of somebody very passionately, and it's the mind that thinks about that person, you see. You can think of, I've thought of people that I haven't seen for years, and I think about them, and in an instant I see that person appearing before me, particularly if a person has been close to me. Not persons who are no longer in this world, such persons you see in your dreams. But telepathy is in fact, and they use telepathic power to in fact reach out to people. Like you start thinking of somebody very, very passionately in your mind, he might just pop across, you see. It's possible. It's happened to me several times, and I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people here. There are moments when, I'm thinking about Tanmay. I remember I was in Paris once, and I was thinking about Tanmay, and I called him up.
Mind is a part of brain, or it is a part of consciousness?
Yeah, press the mic.
Mind is a part of the brain, since the brain is the physical part that exhibits the functions of the brain. And so is consciousness. Consciousness is a part of, again, the function of the brain. So it's the physical reality is the brain, and the superphysical reality is the mind and the consciousness, as well as supraconsciousness and all others.
Thank you. Bring it here. Bring the mic here. All right, after that.
Okay, my name is Nitin, and my question is to you, Tanmay. This is when we spoke, you had a question that, why, when we will have our, Indian products, right? I remember TCS had a banking software back in 95 sometime, right, called Quartz. It was beautifully done, deployed in some banks in Europe somewhere, and then it died. Why did it happen? Before you answer, I have one point which I feel that India doesn't honor the real brains, right? India honors the labor. That's what my thought is. Or you answer.
I just want to, I'm very pleased to actually share with you that the Quartz that was a baby then when you saw it is today Banks, which is in the top quartile quadrant of the global platforms for banks around the world. 7 out of the top 10 banks, including State Bank of India in India, Bank of China in China, and many, many other banks today are using our platform and our IP, which is the banking software. So that baby that you saw didn't actually die, it blossomed into a very big powerhouse today, and it is in the top right-hand side of the quadrants of the best banking platforms in the world today. So we have nurtured that baby. The thing is that, we don't talk about it much, but it is visible. It is today for cooperative banks in India who can't afford their own core banking platform. We have created a cloud-based banking platform which is shared by many cooperative banks so that they don't have to inject too much of capital expenditure to adopt a core banking platform, and that is also Banks. So there is an example, and luckily for me, this one has survived, but I can relate to what you're saying, is that many have died. Many such efforts have died around the country, and there is now the time to nurture and move that respect from physical activity to intellectual activity. I think that's the point you're trying to make, which is we must recognize and respect intellectual capability that we have and our ability to transfer that into world-class products.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, hello, my name is Neelam. I run an old age home. It was wonderful listening to you people, but I do want to say that there is a paradigm shift that is required. I mean, as adults, we can understand meditation and good governance and all these words which they have a meaning as adults. But I think the youth of the country has to be trained into positivity, क्योंकि अभी हम लोग सब केवल यही चिंता करते रहते हैं कि किससे लड़ाई करनी है और किससे नंबर ज़्यादा है और किसको डांट पड़ रही है. I think we have to focus. You people can do it, sir. You can do it. That you tell the schools, especially the government schools, to start focusing on positivity. That is not existing. And to you, sir, I wanted to share that you said telepathy hoti hai ki nahi. Then I would say countless times. A mother is always joined to her son by the umbilical cord. My son used to study in Michigan, and very often, that time mobile phone nahi hota tha, you couldn't call up at any time. But I would tell him exactly the time that he used to think about me. I used to email to him and he would say, I don't believe it, Ma, but yes, it's true. And even now when he's got married, his wife says, there's no point hiding anything from mom. Ye log London gaye the, bimar pade. They didn't tell me because they thought I'll get worried. And I called them and I said, you people are not well. What's wrong? I said, there's no point, because this is telepathy is very, very strong, sir. You just have to love. That's the only thing that you need to do. You just need to love. And another instance, I'll tell you, but it's so common with me, it is so common. I run an old age home. There were 2 brothers living over there. And I keep a room in the old age home for myself also. And Sometimes I would walk around to meet the people, but not very often, and that would be normally only in the daytime. And I walked into this person's room. Somehow something told me at 8 o'clock in the evening, I was having my drink actually over there. At 8 o'clock in the evening, कि कुछ problem है, ताऊजी से मिलना चाहिए. And I went and he was curled up over there and he said, "Are you an angel?" Because I have this very, very bad stomach ache and I don't know what to do and I couldn't get out of my bed, and how have you come? So sir, telepathy is very common. All you have to do is open your mind and love. That's the only trick. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Yes. Kindly identify yourself.
I'm Dr. Alex Hankey. I work as the research coordinator and director of the Swami Vivekananda Yoga Anusandhana Sanstana. This is a wonderful, wonderful phenomenon you've just talked about. My friend Rupert Sheldrake has written entire books on this. This is in his book, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. He tells many stories of the connections between the human mind and the animal mind, and his particular phenomenon known as telephone telepathy says that when you have your mobile ring, very often you know who it is on the end of the line. How many people here have had that phenomenon? Yeah. It is statistically extremely well authenticated. Now, I just want to add something a little less modest. In our new theory of how the human mind works, which depends on a new theory of information developed at our yoga university over the last 8 years, we can give a actual physical, I'm a PhD in theoretical physics, an actual physical explanation for how these things are possible. So, as you very correctly said, it depends on the expansion of the heart connection. That's why golden retrievers and Lassie and the dogs we love are able to communicate with us. I say to all you exalted directors and exalted students and future directors, love the people around you. It will help communicate. It will create great harmony, as I'm sure our distinguished chairman will tell us. Even in places like the CBI, you find that harmony within the group wins everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. Just adding to his comment.
Ma'am, kindly identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lata Paul. Nowadays, you don't need telepathy to identify who's calling you. You have different caller tunes.
Yes. No, big deal.
Okay, now I just want to say one thing. You see this harnessing the powerhouse of the human mind. Unfortunately, people have harnessed it on the negative side. The government, the youth, drugs. Now the government is like, everybody's corrupt. They just want to make money. So they have new methods of, they are using their powerhouse to fleece the people. How do you make it positive? That is what is important.
Thank you. Here, Ajay.
For people in, whom in power.
Mr. Ajay.
Hi, this is Ajay Singh. My question is to Dr. Bose. Dr. Bose, whatever the limited knowledge that I have, you any case were coding from all around the world. But Indian systems, and Tanmay was even talking the Indian systems, some of the people that I would read would talk about dropping the mind. So it would start from Buddha to Krishnamurti onwards. They will keep talking about dropping the mind. Even some of the quotes that you said, mind is, or rather meditation is actually silencing the prejudiced or the emotional or the judging mind. So apparently there is a thought, or there is perhaps a wisdom given to us that we should drop the mind. And that's what meditation is. And on the other side we say we should strengthen the mind. Which way should we go?
I think, according to me, we can't possibly make any headway if we drop the mind, because the mind is the powerhouse, you see. If you drop the mind, then everything goes, you see. Therefore, you have to develop the mind, you see. You can't drop the mind. If you drop the mind, if the mind goes, then the man becomes vegetable, according to me, you see. If the mind has to be harnessed, the mind can't be harnessed by, throwing the mind overboard. It's, in a very Churchillian sense, when the British forces, they left Dunkirk, you see, that time, Churchill said, wars cannot be won by evacuations. When you say dropping of the mind, it means evacuating the mind from what the mind has, you see. So you can't throw that overboard, you see. You have to retain what the mind has, and on that basis, develop the mind and progress, according to me. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Piyush, an orthopedic surgeon and a philosopher. So my question is to Dr. Anjali. What happens whenever we are committing something wrong, it leads to guilt. And that guilt, again, causes us to do mischief or the wrong actions or the actions that are not fruitful. And again, that action leads to more guilt, and this cycle continues. At the time, whenever you are feeling negative, nothing works, no affirmations, you are sitting for meditation, but you are not able to silence your mind. There is no role of visualization and anything, because all the techniques of mind are dependent on the one thing, that is feeling good. If you can color the emotions of good feeling into your processes, then only it works. So how to break that cycle and how to come out of that? Thank you.
Dr. Deepak Chopra prescriptions for guilt and fear and shame, since you have to get over these to again come to the, what Dr. Bose also said, to reach the levels of visualizations and meditations. Without that, the mind cannot be on a positive progress. It will be going negative rather. To drop these things, we have to silence the mind, and that is what meditation is, and that is what cures us of the negativity that we have filled in by our actions and by its results, that is, as you said, guilt or shame or whatever feelings we gather. So silencing the mind, and there are various techniques, various very renowned and gurus in our own culture and even worldwide have given various techniques, starting from, there are a lot of, as we say, chanting of mantras, Om, and name it. There's so many gurus who have given us various techniques so that we in a way wash ourselves spiritually, to get over these feelings, negative feelings of guilt and shame. And of course, you have various affirmative actions that can be done to get over the wrongs which have developed in our mind. It could be even through social service, being passionate towards others, being sympathetic, doing social service. It is such a great healer. If you practice it, some of us, of course, do it in our lives, but people like us who have taken it as a profession now, we feel it really elevates you. And then you realize the true potential you have inside you, because you realize the wrongs that you've done and the wrong thoughts that has created, they feel so inferior and small in front of the great service that you're doing to others. And, in our profession, in my profession of disaster preparedness and training others and saving lives, we always, our colleagues also discuss, even if our work has saved a single life, we feel we've done our bit, all the efforts that we are putting, we feel that satisfaction. So if we take up certain noble services in our daily life, or whenever we get some time, weekly basis, or I would suggest joining yourself in some social service organization. These guilt and all these feelings, they really take a back seat. You realize the net result of our existence is so much more positive.
Thank you. Yes.
My question is how to tap our, how to realize our full potential. That's my question, because what happens in most of the cases that remains untapped, because throughout the lecture more focus was on affirmation, the technique was given, some of the techniques, but how to do it, that's the question, because you know everything, means कि ऐसे होता है, but you are not able to do it. Means how to really do something so that you can go to that level, you can reach that higher stage where you can realize your full potential, which remains otherwise untapped. And I had read a book, that Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I think you also might have gone through that book. And in that book I studied that if I affirm something positive about others, that positive will occur to him or her. So my question is, if I affirm something negative about someone, that will also happen? Will the negativity reach to that people? That's my question. Because the moment I read that, if I affirm something good about others, good will happen to him or her.
Whom do you want to answer?
Anyone, Dr. Angelique or Anup Bose, anyone can answer this.
A negative thought can't lead to positive action, but a negative thought can lead to a negative action, you see. So you can't get anything positive out of something which is negative. And in the context of what my friend talked about, dropping the mind, silencing of the mind is not the same thing as dropping the mind. Silencing the mind means keeping the mind at rest and allowing it to be strengthened. When you said, should I strengthen the mind or drop the mind? You can't drop the mind. If you throw the mind overboard out of the human body, then the body can't be strengthened to achieve anything. And if you have a negative thought, it can only lead to a negative action. A negative thought can't possibly lead to a positive action.
Thank you. Who else?
Yeah, a very good evening. So, like you have said that human mind is the vehicle of human will, but I have often heard that there is something called, say, destiny or higher power or a spiritual something. Can you just elaborate on this aspect of life also besides human mind? And the second thing is elevation of human consciousness. So what exactly do you mean by elevation of human consciousness, and how will it impact the entire humanity?
You see, when you talk of destiny, destiny is something which is not really in your power. Of course, there is the story of Napoleon, who was told he didn't have a fate line. And he took the edge of the sword and he cut a fate line on his palm, and he said, there is my fate and there is my destiny, you see. But as such, destiny is not something, when you control your mind, you cannot control destiny which controls your life, you see. You can't, according to me. I mean, that's my own personal view. Destiny is something which is, I think, extraneous to the human mind, but destiny is something which comes upon you. There are many people who say life is a struggle against destiny itself. That's another school of thought. Others are saying everything is predestined, like our being here with Dr. Karthikeyan and being in this lovely seminar is predestined, you see. But what is predestined is not something which emanates from my mind. I could not have, visualized that I'll be sitting in this gathering and, being in this seminar. The destiny is something that comes to us, you see, whether by divine intervention or otherwise. Destiny is not something which, according to me, I can, in the way I can sort of control the way I move in life. But when destiny comes upon us, like, say, the death in a family, now that's something that I can't possibly foresee, you see. It just happens, So, in a way, according to me, the mind cannot really, because destiny is something which, according to me, comes upon us. And the mind either accepts it or sort of reacts to it, or sort of, there could be a positive or a negative reaction to an event, to an event of destiny, you see. So that's how I look at it. Thank you.
If you allow, may I request to all the panelists so that we should have our discussion on the next level. As Mr. Singh has stated that state of no mind is the real state of consciousness. That is the state where human sufferings can end. Krishnamurti, Osho, and even Buddha has told us that state of mindfulness, it means state of no mind. Or, in other words, state of awareness can decrease or can kill our sufferings. Otherwise, what we are doing here, we are pampering our mind, whether by way of positivities, all sort of things, we are pampering our mind, and it is not going to decrease or it's not going to end our suffering. The state of no mind is going to end our suffering. Unless until we become witness to our mind, we are not going to, end our sufferings. We would go in the way we are going. Whatsoever we pamper our mind by way of positivities or whatsoever, all these things which are happening by all sort of motivators, sufferings are going to increase. Sufferings are not going to end unless and until we attain the state of no mind, which is called mindfulness by Buddha, awareness by Osho, and state of no mind or state of choiceless awareness by J. Krishna.
I think you've said it all, and there's very little less to be mentioned there. I think
some very valuable comments.
Yeah, and I think
There's nothing to disagree with you.
You have quoted very eminent people who've had large sections of followers. Obviously, what they have been saying has got to be right. But again, just to come back to the young man's point about, I think the key is about creating small manageable goals and achieving them from within. I think that's the step-by-step approach. And the problem that we have in, let's say, India is pessimism is a part of our DNA, and that needs to go out of our DNA. If you look at the way we embrace sensational news, if you look at the way we actually give more TRP ratings to negativity in the country, as compared to what we need to really look at better India and better examples and, let that radiate. If we can bring about this mental transformation, there is going to be a huge transformation. That's the way I look at it.
Yes. I have one more question to
All right, okay.
Miss Anjali. You have mentioned Deepak Chopra and his self-awareness technique. So I want to understand, is it the meditation or is it something else? Could you please elaborate what you mean by self-awareness?
Self-awareness, as he prescribed, is, I would say, a way of life. It's being aware of your decisions that you're making, the conscious choices you're making. So I would say, in brief, it just means that you should be in charge of your thoughts. You should be having directed thinking, you should be having directed action based on that. So that is what he means when he prescribes self-awareness. You should not just be in the flow of things, you should be consciously and directing awareness inside so that you create a world, a life, a reality of your desires. That is what he means.
I'm highly emboldened to say that I would rather advocate silencing of the mind, something that people talked about today, rather than dropping the mind and taking in, the words of Abraham Lincoln in a different context when he said, "I'd rather remain silent and be called a fool than speak and clear all doubt." You see, so if the mind is sort of put into not in a state where it is thrown overboard, because the brain sons the mind, can't possibly act, you see. The brain needs the mind, you see. When I talk of the incredible powerhouse of the human mind, the mind has to be there. I mean, according to me, if you throw the mind overboard, it's like throwing an engine off a ship and expecting the ship to sort of run without the engine, you see. It's as extreme as that. But yes, I do agree with, if you silence the mind, perhaps a silent mind can achieve a lot without speaking out, like Lincoln said, "I'd rather remain silent and be called a fool than speak and clear all doubt." On a lighter vein, of course, we have to bring in a lighter vein at the end of a rather serious discussion, you see. Thank you.
Hello. My question is to all the panelists. Can you suggest something for like enhancing creativity? And is creativity in any way linked to spirituality? Are those people who have been very creative, the Mozarts and the Ravi Shankars of the world, were they in some way creative? That's why they were able to like harness that. Were they in some way spiritual, that is, from where they got their inspiration? Or is it unrelated, like spirituality and creativity? Or is there a relation? Thank you so much.
In fact, you are absolutely right, because I must plume myself in telling you that, I have the largest collection of Western classical music in India, over 60,000 vinyl discs, and part of that collection is Mozart. You see, I have almost everything, and my wife was in Salzburg only 2 weeks ago. And I can tell you that in Germany, I know, of course, Mozart was Austrian, but in those days it was Austria. Mental patients are made to listen to Mozart to improve their mental condition. And many of them, even people who are spastic children, children who are physically disabled, are able to gain substantial mental and physical thing through the power of Mozart's music, you see. And this has been proved by scientists, I mean, I know scientists in Germany, I know people in even the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra was playing some music which used to be played to minds which had been silent. Because today we don't talk of a person who's a lunatic or a person who doesn't have a mental prowess. It is just that in his case, perhaps mind has not been dropped. The mind is silent for some reason, you see. It sort of becomes silent. But yes, Mozart has had a very, very powerful impact on the mind. And I know people who listen to Mozart and enhance their creativity, like an artist or a sculptor. I know, and in fact, many times when, I sort of, many artists, when they have an exhibition, they ask me for my music. And my music complements their art and spurs them to greater creativity. So music, as Aristotle said, lends wings to the universe, you see, yes. See, in a way, yes, Mozart music, I would not say merely lends wings to the human mind and enriches and embellishes the power of the human mind, you see.
Can you say any classical music? Any classical music?
Yes, absolutely. Even Indian classical music, in fact, has a much greater spiritual content, you see.
Mantras.
The sages and the mantras itself, like the Gregorian chant, you see, my friends would know. There used to be music with just chanting, you see, like in the old days used to have a Gregorian chant where you have uninterrupted chanting, which sort of, or say the Buddhist monks, when they chant, it's a chanting, it's not music, but which gives strength to people around them and which gives to people strength from within, you see, from within and without the chanting. So therefore, all this meditation, all that also comes into play. So that is in fact, like when there are certain extreme Muslim schools, they say music is something which is not accepted by Islam. No, even the way when people, the faithful, are called to prayer, the azan itself is musical according to me, you see. When people the faithful are called to prayer, when on the loudspeakers the azan is recited, it is a form of, it has certain musical notes. Vibration. It is very musical, you see. Or the prayers of the Buddhist saints, Thank you.
I am from the Defense Forces. As we look like it, peace. Peace doesn't only come from solitude, tranquility, and meditation alone. If you want peace, what the army says, if you want peace, be prepared for war. Be prepared for everything which will fight against everything which will give you peace. Get rid of caste, color, creed, and religion, then you'll achieve harmony. And good governance, govern with a solid, fearless mind, converting your thought into action, not like governance, with due apologies. You have to govern with a strong will, not thinking about what people will say. Logo ka kaam to hai kehna bhi. Do your job and convert your thought, speech into action. People have got a great following for speeches, good orators, but if they converted their speech into action, then we'll really achieve what is good governance. Without fear, fearless mind, with a strong will. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here? Here.
Name has been changed now. Has a report that 50% of the world's young population are in India, and they are malnourished and lack education. So there is a flip side to what you said.
Yeah, as I said also that, we have 1 billion problems which can also be converted into 1 billion opportunities. So it's a way of looking at it. As I said, pessimism is a part of the DNA and that needs to be changed. And we definitely need to introspect that after 65 or 68 years of pumping public subsidy into the system, why is it that there is no transformation that has happened in our villages? So there is time, I think, for us to do introspection. There is time to look at how we can ensure that the bona fide is the ultimate recipient of the effort of the government, and there are no parasites in between who take away and usurp from the system. So these all can be achieved if you bring transparency in governance. These all can be achieved if you can enable governance using technology and you remove the ad hocism from government and governance through the ad hoc powers of the strength of the seat, as I call it. So there are many things that we need to do to get rid of the ills that we have. But if we continue to focus on the ills, then we will never have the conversion into strengths. And that's the path that I'm suggesting, that create the environment such that we demolish conformity to the traditional to be able to bring in the power of the creativity of the mind to really find solutions for our own selves, which we know the best as compared to the rest of the world, prescribing those solutions to us as a country.
I'd like to, in fact, react very briefly to the very marital, martial, comment on peace, you see. And of course, peace and war, and we don't talk of Hitler and Ludendorff and all that. See, we must remember the old saying, peace has its victories no less renowned than war, you see. That's number one. And secondly, when we talk of peace, our great Prime Minister in his speech at the stroke of midnight hour, and one portion of that speech is, I think, very relevant to what you said. He said, peace is indivisible, and so is freedom. But he didn't talk of war, and he said, and so is poverty, and so is disaster in the one world which can no longer be broken into isolated fragments. The days of warmongering are over with the First and Second World War. Millions were slaughtered, you see. And the war started on minor things like the assassination of the Crown Prince of Austria and the failure of the Munich talks, you see. But today the world needs peace. And I don't think the only way to achieve peace is through war. That's the way the Kaiser believed. That's the way the Japanese war minister believed. That's the way Adolf Hitler believed. I think the world has moved away from that philosophy that peace can be achieved by war. No, I think peace is indivisible. And what we have to address ourselves is to the larger issues upon which our first Prime Minister emphasized upon. Poverty, disaster, and that is freedom. Of course, most of the African and Asian countries have earned their freedom because of the example of India. So therefore, we must keep war in the back burner. And I would again repeat at the cost of repetition, peace has its victories no less renowned than war. And this is the country which has shown the world the path of peace, from Mahatma Gandhi to Buddha, to Mother Teresa, to Swami Vivekananda. This is a country of peace. India has never waged war against any other country, unless we were attacked, you see. There's not a single instance in history where India has attacked any other country, right from the time of Alexander to the last Kargil incursions, you see, where Pakistani soldiers entered our territory. We only drove them out, but we never attacked them. So this has been a country which has believed in peace, which has nurtured peace, and peace has never been achieved by India by following the path of war or warfare. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vivek, last question.
My name is Vivek Gandhi. Actually, there was a lot of talk on dropping the mind and silencing the mind. Actually, our ancient text provides some clarity on that, because they say that there are 4 functions of mind, which is Chit, Manas, Buddhi, and Ahamkar. So when I think we need to understand these 4 functions of the mind to really get into what should be dropped and what should be strengthened. So since there was so much talk about it, so I thought I'll just add this onto it. If anybody has something to add onto it, I'll be glad to hear. I'm sorry? Yes, I understand that. No, I was just thinking that there was so much talk between dropping and silencing. So it's better that,
the great concept which has been mentioned is that of the witness, known in Sanskrit as Sakshi. The Mundaka Upanishad says we have two components to the mind, the bird that pecks the fruit and the bird that looks on. To develop a full understanding of the human mind, speaking as a physicist, you need to develop a theory of information which has a self-observing loop within it. The self-observing loop acts as the witness that looks on, having real self-consciousness within it, self-awareness, as described by Osho and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, Sadhguru, and many others, Vivekananda. So, to harness the incredible powerhouse of the human being, strengthen the witness, so then the person can stand back from the action and take absolutely the right intuitive decision to make the right choice for everyone.
Thank you. Can I say thank you?
For the prosecution.
Thanking our eminent panelists, Mr. Chakraborty, Dr. Anjali and Dr. Bose, and thank you, all of you, ladies and gentlemen.